Good morning, everyone. Today is January 9th, and once again, I'm going to be using the market profile to break down what happened with the Magnificent Seven stocks using market auction profiles, market theory. Before I begin, just a quick disclaimer: it's not financial advice, just for entertainment purposes only. Okay, awesome. So we're going to get right into the chart. So the first one I'm going to start off with is Tesla. So with Tesla, the attentive direction I said was up, although a little weak, primarily because there were no buying tails. So there's no buying tails here or selling tails here. There was no range extension out of the initial balance. When I did calculate the rotation factor, I did get a +1, and it's the B block that is the +1. Everything else is 0. Okay. Now, when it came to volume, it was a low volume. And the value area placement, as you guys can see, is the value area here. I had said it overlapped to the downside. So conclusion, on low volume, market attempted to go up and resulted in value that overlapped to the downside. Sorry for the little typo here. So this happened on low volume. Okay. So suggesting shorting is not bringing in new sellers. So people that were shorting yesterday are now bringing in new sellers. There's a chance that buyers may test prices higher. Uh, shorting does not make sense here. So once again, in conclusion, on low volume, market attempted to go up, but resulted in value that overlapped to the downside. Sorry, I'm just going to correct this typo here. So on low volume, market attempted to go up and resulted in value area that overlapped to the downside. Shorting here does not make sense for the Tesla stocks. So for NVIDIA, the attempted direction was neutral to slightly down. Okay, neutral because I said neutral because the rotation factor is 0. But before I get into the rotation factor, you can see that at open there was a selling tail, and then you had a little bit of range extension in blocks E, in block E. So with the rotation factor is 0 because there's nothing that said otherwise. Each time frame either had the same high or the same low. So therefore it was a 0. So volume yesterday for NVIDIA was average volume. Okay. However, the value area placement, as you guys can see, it did move lower. Okay. So in conclusion, on average volume, stock attempted to go nowhere, maybe slightly down, and resulted in value that that moved lower. So the market profile suggests sellers may continue to test lower value, however, they may be getting weaker. Going long here, may not make sense. Moving on to the next stock here, I have Apple. So for Apple, the attempted direction is up. So just looking at the profile here, there are no tails here or here. There was range extension to the upside, okay, in block C. Now, the rotation factor I did calculate as +1, and I believe it's the K and L blocks that is the +1 here. Okay, the volume was average yesterday, so just average. And the value area, as you guys can see, it did move lower. So in conclusion, on average volume, so for the Apple stock, on average volume, stock attempted to go up, but resulted in value that was lower. So sellers may continue to test lower price, however, they are weakening. So going long here does not make sense. Now, moving on to the Amazon stock. So the intended direction I said is up. So just looking at the market profile, you guys can see there are no tails, buying tails or shorting tails, but you can see that there was range extension to the upside in G period. Okay. So rotation factor I calculated as +2. So as you guys can see, the F block to G block is 1, and A block to B block is another one. And that's how I got the +2. Okay. So volume yesterday for Amazon was average, and the value area I said it overlapped higher. Okay. So in conclusion, so for the Amazon stock, on average volume, stock moved up, stock moved higher, and moved value that overlapped to the upside. So there's a chance that Amazon could be balancing, and buyers may continue to test higher value. So shorting here would be unwise. The next stock I have here is Meta. So for Meta, the attempted direction is up. Because I had calculated rotation factor of +1. However, when you look at the profile, there's no tails to shorting tails or buying tails, and there is no range extension. So the rotation factor of 1 + 1 is the B block to C block. So the difference in B block and C block is the +1 there. The volume yesterday for Meta was low, and if you guys can see the value area here, the value area seems to suggest that it moved lower. I don't think it did not overlap lower, it moved lower. So on low volume, stock attempted to move up, but resulted in value that moved lower. This suggests that people shorting are not attracting new sellers. Shorting would be unwise, waiting for the buyers to step in. Okay. The next stock I have here is Netflix. So Netflix, the attempted direction I said is up because the rotation factor of +2. But just looking at the market profile, there are no tails, shorting tails or buying tails, and there's no range extension. Okay. The rotation factor of +2, I got A block to B block to compare A block and B block, that's +1, and also H block and I block, and that's another +1. That's how I got +2. Volume was average, and as you guys can see, the value area, it overlapped lower. I would say it overlapped lower. Okay. So Netflix, in conclusion, so for Netflix, the conclusion is on average volume, stock attempted to move higher, but resulted in value that overlapped lower. Okay, or is the same. Suggests that stock is balancing, sellers are weak, more shorting would be unwise. So next stock I have here is Microsoft. So just looking at the profile, you guys can see that there's a shorting tail right at open. There are no buying tails, and there's no range extension beyond the initial balance to the downside or to the upside. Okay. The rotation factor I did calculate as 0, so I said the intended direction is neutral. So I'll just take a quick look here. As you guys can see, every time frame in comparison to the previous time frame either has the same high or the same low, and when that's the case, it's automatically 0. Okay. Yeah. The volume yesterday was low, and as you guys can see, the value area, it moved lower. Okay. So in conclusion, on low volume, stock attempted to go nowhere, but resulted in value that moved lower. Profile suggests shorting here is not attracting new sellers. Downside may stall. Unsure if there was profit taking happening. Okay, I'm not sure if this was profit taking. So for Google, I said the attempted, so just looking at the market profile here, there are no tails, shorting tails or buying tails, and there is no range extension beyond blocks A and B, the initial balance. I did say that that time direction is up because the rotation factor is +1. So I'm just going to open the blocks here. And B block, C block is the +1 here. And then I had a +1 in the E block and the F block. Okay. So it should be +2. So, sorry. And then D block and E block is in -1. So it resulted in +1. Okay. So volume, this was average volume. And if you guys can see the value area, it overlapped higher. It overlapped higher. Okay. So in conclusion, so on average volume, stock attempted to move up and resulted in value that overlapped to the upside. Buyers may continue to test higher value. They could also be balancing them. And so buyers may continue to test higher value. They're not exhausted. And last but not least, I have Coinbase. So just looking at the profile here, I don't see any tails, shorting tails or buying tails. There is no range extension to either side. I did say the attempted direction was neutral because the rotation factor is 0. I'm just going to open up the blocks real quick. And as you guys can see, each time frame either has the same high or same low as the previous time frame. And because of that, it's a 0. The volume yesterday was low, and the value area I did say it was overlapped higher. Okay, so in conclusion, on low volume, stock attempted to go nowhere and resulted in value that overlapped higher. Below average volume suggests lack of market participants. I would monitor stock is balancing, so I would monitor for more information as to find out which way the stock auctions. So yeah. So that kind of sums up my, list of 7, 8, 9 stocks using market profile. I hope it adds a value to, your trading day, and have a great day trading, everyone. Thank you so much.